Have you ever wished you could think clearer, feel less stress, or just become a little bit better at being human? All without having to overhaul your life? What if I told you that 5 minutes a day, just five, could begin to rewire your brain? That's not a gimmick, it's neuroscience. We live in a fast-paced world where we're constantly reacting, multitasking, and stressing. But the brain is remarkably plastic. It has the ability to change, grow, and adapt even in adulthood. This is called neuroplasticity. And just like muscles grow with repeated exercise, your brain changes with repeated focus. The catch? Most people think it takes hours of meditation or massive life changes. But science is telling us a different story. Consistency matters more than intensity. For many years, scientists believed that the human brain stopped developing after childhood. The prevailing belief was that once we reached a certain age, our neural pathways were fixed, and we were essentially stuck with the brain we had. But modern neuroscience has completely overturned that idea. Thanks to groundbreaking research in recent decades, we now know that the brain remains highly adaptable throughout life, a concept known as neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity refers to the brain's incredible ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections in response to learning, experience, or even injury. It means that your brain is not hardwired, but rather soft-wired, malleable and capable of change at any age. This adaptability explains why people can learn new languages in their 60s, recover skills after a stroke, or shift long-held mental habits with the right effort and repetition. Every time you think a thought, practice a skill, or repeat a behavior, your brain strengthens the neural pathways associated with it. Just like treading the same path through a forest eventually creates a visible trail. And the more frequently you activate a particular network of neurons, the more efficient that pathway becomes. In short, what you do consistently shapes how your brain is wired. This is why the idea of rewiring your brain isn't just motivational jargon. It's backed by decades of scientific study. And it's not reserved for the elite or for people with endless free time. The truth is, even small, deliberate actions, when repeated over time, can trigger this rewiring process. You don't need years of training or massive life changes. What you do need is consistency and intention, even if it's only for 5 minutes a day. Neuroplasticity gives us hope because it means we're not prisoners of our past or our current mental patterns. Whether it's breaking free from negative thinking, becoming more focused, or learning emotional resilience, our brains are ready and willing to change if we show up for them regularly. When people think about making a change in their brain or behavior, they often imagine that it requires a major life overhaul, a dramatic transformation fueled by sheer willpower, long hours, or intense effort. It's the all-or-nothing mindset: go big or don't bother. But when it comes to the brain, science tells us a different, more hopeful story. It's not the size of the effort that matters most. It's the consistency. Think of your brain like a trail in the woods. Every time you walk the same path, you trample the grass a little more, making it easier to travel next time. Similarly, each time you repeat an action, a thought, or an emotion, you're reinforcing a specific neural circuit. If you only walk that trail once a month, it stays overgrown. But if you walk it every day, even for just 5 minutes, it becomes a clear, well-worn path. This is how habits are built and brains are rewired. Tiny, repeated actions cause the brain to strengthen the associated neural pathways through a process called long-term potentiation. Over time, these micro moments of repetition begin to override older, less helpful pathways, ones built by stress, distraction, or negative self-talk. And the best part? Your brain doesn't demand perfection or long duration. It rewards regular attention no matter how small. For example, If you spend 5 minutes each morning practicing deep breathing, you gradually teach your nervous system to enter a calm state more quickly. If you write down one thing you're grateful for every night, your brain begins to scan your day for positive experiences automatically. If you spend a few minutes visualizing your goals each day, your mind becomes more focused on opportunities that align with them. Each of these short practices might seem trivial in isolation, but when done consistently, they spark real, measurable changes in your brain's structure and function. In contrast, sporadic, intense efforts, like a weekend meditation retreat followed by weeks of neglect, often fail to create lasting impact. That's because the brain thrives on repetition, not intensity. A single extraordinary effort can bring a spark of insight or clarity, but lasting transformation comes from what you do regularly, not occasionally. So when it comes to reshaping your brain, small and steady beats big and random every time. It might seem hard to believe that something as short as 5 minutes could actually make a difference in how your brain functions. We're conditioned to think that big results require big-time commitments, hours in the gym, years of study, or lengthy self-help programs. But when it comes to the brain, even brief, purposeful moments of intentional practice can spark real neurological change. The key word here is intentional. When you engage in an activity with focus, awareness, and a specific aim, rather than going through the motions, you activate neural pathways more deeply and efficiently. This targeted engagement is what makes a short session impactful. It's not just about spending time, it's about how you spend it. Let's consider mindfulness meditation. Studies have shown that as little as 5 minutes of daily mindfulness practice can begin to calm the nervous system, reduce stress hormones like cortisol, and activate the brain's default mode network, linked to self-awareness and introspection. Over time, such a practice can lead to decreased activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear and stress center, and increased gray matter in areas related to emotional regulation and decision-making. Or take gratitude journaling, writing down 3 things you're grateful for each day. In just a few minutes, you're rewiring your brain to notice and savor the positive aspects of life. This activates regions like the ventral striatum and medial prefrontal cortex, which are associated with reward and motivation. Regular gratitude practice strengthens those neural circuits, training your brain to become more attuned to joy and less reactive to negativity. Even learning something new for 5 minutes, reading an article, watching a quick educational video, or practicing a language can contribute to what's known as cognitive reserve. This is your brain's resilience to aging and stress. Those small bursts of focused learning stimulate the hippocampus, enhance memory retention, and improve overall cognitive flexibility. What's important to understand is that your brain responds to repeated signals, no matter how short. By dedicating just 5 minutes a day to practices that promote awareness, positivity, or growth, you're sending your brain a consistent message. This matters, and the brain listens. Over time, it adapts by strengthening the pathways that align with your chosen practice. So whether it's through breathing, journaling, affirming, or studying, those 5 focused minutes are not wasted. They're cumulative. Like drops of water carving through stone, intentional repetition reshapes the mind in subtle but powerful ways. Stress has become an almost unavoidable part of modern life. Deadlines, notifications, social pressure, and constant stimulation keep our nervous systems in a near constant state of alert. Over time, chronic stress doesn't just make us feel overwhelmed, it physically changes our brain, particularly the amygdala, which is the region responsible for detecting threats and triggering the fight or flight response. When the amygdala is overactive, we become more reactive, anxious, and emotionally volatile. We may find ourselves snapping at loved ones, feeling panicked over small issues, or unable to focus because our brains are constantly scanning for danger. In a chronically stressed brain, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making, planning, and self-control, starts to weaken, while the amygdala grows stronger. It's like handing the steering wheel of your life to your panic response. But here's the good news. Daily intentional practices, even just 5 minutes long, can begin to reverse this pattern. One of the most powerful ways to do this is through mindfulness or deep breathing. When you sit quietly and bring your attention to your breath, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest branch that slows the heart rate, lowers blood pressure, and tells your body it's safe. Repeatedly doing this reduces the amygdala's size and activity over time, according to brain imaging studies. This isn't about escaping stress entirely. That's unrealistic. It's about training your brain to respond rather than react. Through short, consistent daily practices like mindfulness, gratitude, or journaling, you're strengthening the brain's emotional regulation systems. You begin to notice your thoughts and emotions without being hijacked by them. You create a buffer between stimulus and reaction, allowing for more thoughtful and balanced responses. Even practices like gratitude or positive visualization help in this regulation process. When you focus on what's going well or imagine success and safety, you counterbalance the brain's natural negativity bias, its tendency to fixate on threats. This promotes a more balanced emotional state, where joy and calm become easier to access, even in the middle of chaos. What's remarkable is that these effects don't require hours of meditation or a lifestyle overhaul. They just require repetition. The brain doesn't need you to be perfect, it needs you to be consistent. Each time you pause, breathe, reflect, or refocus, you're essentially giving your amygdala a break and reinforcing pathways that support calm, clarity, and resilience. When we think about changing our mindset, many of us imagine it's something that just happens, a result of external success, good luck, or natural personality traits. But neuroscience has shown that mindset isn't something you're simply born with. It's something you can actively cultivate. Two of the most powerful tools for this are gratitude and visualization, both of which can significantly shift how your brain interprets the world and what you believe is possible for your life. Let's start with gratitude. Practicing gratitude daily, even for just a few minutes, activates regions in the brain associated with emotional regulation, empathy, and reward, particularly the prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex. These regions play a key role in how we process emotion and make decisions. When you take time each day to reflect on what you're thankful for, whether it's a kind gesture, a warm meal, or simply being alive, you're teaching your brain to scan the environment for the positive, rather than defaulting to fear, scarcity, or frustration. This is critical because the human brain is wired with a negativity bias, an evolutionary trait that helped our ancestors survive by focusing on threats. Today, that same bias causes us to dwell on problems, overlook progress, and underestimate our own resilience. But gratitude interrupts that cycle. Over time, it rewires the brain to default more naturally to optimism and resilience, even in the face of setbacks. Visualization is another powerful technique that works in tandem with gratitude to elevate mindset. When you vividly imagine a desired outcome, achieving a goal, feeling confident in a situation, or navigating a challenge successfully, you're engaging the brain's motor cortex, prefrontal cortex, and limbic system as if you were actually living the experience. This mental rehearsal not only builds familiarity and confidence, but also strengthens your motivation by aligning your brain with your goals. Elite athletes and high performers across disciplines use visualization to train their minds, not just their bodies. But this isn't just for professionals. It's for anyone who wants to direct their mental energy toward growth instead of fear. Even 5 minutes of focused visualization can make your goals feel more attainable, increase your belief in yourself, and push your brain to seek opportunities rather than obstacles. When practiced regularly, gratitude and visualization create a feedback loop of positive thinking. You start to see more good in your life, which lifts your mood. That elevated mood increases your motivation to take action, and that action leads to results, reinforcing your belief in your own ability to influence your future. What makes this truly powerful is the simplicity. You don't need a journal full of perfect prose or an hour-long meditation session. You just need a few quiet minutes each day to direct your focus inward, toward what's already good and toward what's still possible. When we think of building strength, most people picture the gym, lifting weights, doing push-ups, or running on a treadmill. We understand that to grow a muscle or improve endurance, we have to show up consistently and train that part of the body. Yet we often forget that the brain is no different. Just like physical fitness, mental fitness depends on repetition, and the small actions we take daily are what shape our mental resilience, focus, and emotional strength. The brain functions on a use it or lose it principle. The more you engage certain neural pathways, the stronger and more efficient they become. This is known as Hebbian learning, summed up by the phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together. Every time you repeat a thought, behavior, or emotion, you reinforce the associated neural circuit, making it more likely to be activated again in the future. In this way, habits of thinking become mental reflexes. For example, if you regularly practice calming breathing techniques or positive self-talk, you are conditioning your brain to respond to stress with clarity instead of panic. If you consistently focus your attention, even for a few minutes a day, you're strengthening your prefrontal cortex, responsible for concentration, decision-making, and impulse control. Over time, those circuits become more dominant and automatic, much like how an athlete develops muscle memory through consistent practice. On the flip side, if we allow ourselves to spiral into worry, negativity, or distraction every day, we are also training those patterns. The brain doesn't judge, it simply strengthens whatever is repeated. This is why intentional repetition is so important. You are always shaping your brain, either by default or by design. Consider elite performers in any field: athletes, musicians, surgeons, public speakers. They don't become excellent by cramming or relying on talent alone. They become masters by practicing fundamental skills over and over, sometimes in short, focused bursts. The same principle applies to your mindset, emotional regulation, and cognitive abilities. Even just 5 minutes of practice a day, whether it's journaling, meditating, visualizing, or reflecting, can be powerful when done consistently. It's like adding one brick to a structure each day. One brick might not look like much, but over time those bricks turn into a solid foundation. And that foundation becomes the platform for more advanced skills, deeper self-awareness, and greater mental strength. The beauty of this approach is that it's entirely within your control. You don't need a mentor, a degree, or perfect conditions. What you need is a simple, repeatable practice. A way to show up for your brain the same way you'd show up at the gym. And just like with physical training, it's not the single intense workout that builds lasting change. It's the daily discipline of showing up again and again. In our result-driven society, it's easy to overlook small actions because they don't provide instant gratification. If we meditate for 5 minutes today and don't immediately feel calmer, or journal for a few days without a dramatic mindset shift, we assume it's not working. But this thinking misses one of the most powerful forces in both life and neuroscience: the principle of compounding. Compounding is the process by which small, consistent inputs grow exponentially over time. Most people are familiar with this idea when it comes to finances. Putting away a little money regularly may not seem impactful in the moment, but over months and years, that money accumulates interest and grows far beyond the sum of the original deposits. The same principle applies to your habits, thoughts, emotional patterns, and neural pathways. Each time you take 5 intentional minutes for your mind, whether to reflect, breathe, visualize, or practice gratitude, you're not just experiencing a moment of peace. You're laying down another layer of wiring in your brain. The change is microscopic at first, even invisible, but it is cumulative. Day by day, those short moments of awareness build on each other. With consistency, they begin to reshape how you think, how you react, how you process challenges, and even how you see yourself. Think of it like planting a seed. The day you plant it, nothing visible happens. Even after a week, it may seem like there's no progress. But below the surface, roots are growing, systems are forming, and with regular nourishment, that seed eventually breaks the surface and grows into something vibrant and strong. It's the same with the brain. You may not feel transformed after one session, but if you stay consistent, the transformation becomes inevitable. This is why the most successful habits are the ones that feel almost too small to matter at first. They are not overwhelming, so you're more likely to repeat them. And because the brain rewards repetition, every time you perform that habit, it becomes a little easier and more automatic. Over weeks and months, what was once effortful becomes effortless. What felt like a choice becomes a part of who you are. Compounding also explains why short daily practices often outperform longer, infrequent ones. A single hour-long meditation once a month may feel profound in the moment, but it won't rewire your brain the same way 5 minutes a day can. That's because the brain responds best to frequency, not intensity. The more often you activate a neural pathway, the stronger it becomes. Just like muscles grow from consistent reps, not from one massive lift. So when you dedicate 5 minutes a day to your mental well-being, you are investing in your future self. You're making deposits into your emotional bank account, your cognitive clarity, and your resilience. And though the results may be subtle at first, over time they grow into something powerful, often surprising you with how much you've changed. Not through a grand event, but through hundreds of small, meaningful moments that built upon one another. In a world that often feels chaotic, unpredictable, and overwhelming, one of the most common emotional experiences people report is a sense of powerlessness. Whether it's the pressure of global events, personal challenges, or simply the speed at which life moves, it's easy to feel like we're being swept along by forces beyond our control. This can lead to a state of chronic stress, low motivation, and even burnout. But what many people don't realize is that a small, intentional daily act can begin to restore your sense of agency, your belief that you can influence your own life. Agency is not just a motivational buzzword. It's a psychological cornerstone of well-being. When you feel that your actions matter and that your decisions have impact, you're more likely to take initiative, solve problems creatively, and persevere through difficulty. The absence of agency, on the other hand, leads to learned helplessness, the belief that no matter what you do, things won't change. And this belief can quietly erode mental health, self-esteem, and even your brain's motivation circuits. Here's where the power of 5 minutes comes in. When you choose to spend just a few minutes each day doing something purposeful, like focusing on your breath, writing down your goals, stretching in silence, or repeating empowering affirmations, you're making a statement, one that your brain and body hear loud and clear. I am not a victim of my day. I am a participant in my life. Even if the world around you remains hectic, even if problems persist, that short moment of conscious effort becomes a grounding ritual, a signal to yourself that you still have power over your inner world. These minutes become anchors, helping you stay steady in the face of change. Over time, this daily action trains your mind to look for choices rather than feel trapped by circumstances. You become less reactive and more intentional. You start to see that while you may not control everything, you do control how you show up. What's remarkable is that the practice doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be as simple as sitting quietly and checking in with your thoughts, or jotting down what you want to feel today. The magic is not in the complexity, it's in the consistency and the message it sends to your brain. My actions matter. Each repetition reinforces the belief that you are someone who takes responsibility for your mind and your well-being, and that belief begins to permeate other areas of your life, how you approach work, relationships, decisions, and challenges. In fact, modern neuroscience shows that a sense of agency is linked to the prefrontal cortex, the brain's command center for planning, attention, and decision-making. When you act with intention, even briefly, you're strengthening this part of the brain, literally enhancing your capacity to lead yourself with clarity and purpose. That 5-minute ritual isn't just a moment of peace, it's mental training and reclaiming ownership of your thoughts, emotions, and future. So as you leave here today, I invite you to consider this. Change doesn't require a massive leap. It begins with a decision. A simple choice to show up for yourself, even if it's only for 5 minutes. 5 minutes to breathe, to reflect, to express gratitude, to imagine a better version of yourself. Those small windows of time aren't just pauses in your day, they're opportunities to reshape the very architecture of your mind. Your brain is listening to how you live, and with each intentional act, you're not just surviving the day, you're quietly, powerfully rewiring your future. You don't need hours, you don't need perfection. You just need 5 minutes and the courage to use them with purpose. Thank you.